Detroit Free Press had an article earlier today about Jim Harbaugh not getting the Vikings job. And the whole thing really does reek of the premise and plot of a bad sitcom where Harbaugh thought he was getting it. Harbaugh assumed he was getting it. The Vikings' attitude was not so fast. And I've heard different things about what happened throughout the course of the interview. And there's some scuttlebutt about maybe some players didn't want Harbaugh there. Maybe a Kirk Cousins would rather have a Kevin O'Connell who he's worked with in the past. And I'd be stunned if the Wilfs kowtowed to Kirk Cousins, given, number one, the overall quality of his play when it counts in 4 years. Number two, their inability to get to the playoffs more than once in 4 years. And number three, the fact that he's under contract for 1 more year, showing no indication or inclination to sign an extension and putting the Wilfs in a position where they may have to compete on the open market to keep his services beyond this season if they even want him. So if they listened to him at all, if they allowed themselves to be influenced at all by Kirk Cousins in this process, shame on them.
Yeah, well, look, he's still the quarterback right now. I mean, I don't necessarily think he's going to be for the long term in Minnesota. I don't even know if they would want him to be there in the long term in Minnesota. I mean, he's a decent quarterback. And I mean, yesterday you called him one of your most, or maybe it was 2 days ago, I don't remember, but you called him one of your most underrated players in the game.
I was joking.
By the way.
It was sarcastic.
It didn't seem sarcastic. I wasn't being sarcastic when I said that about Robert Woods. Either way, you know, it's a weird sort of disconnect when you have a guy like a Harbaugh who goes into something maybe thinking it's some sort of coronation, and then he comes out of it, and in the end, he doesn't exactly even have the job, right? But there clearly was some sort of interest, and probably a lot of interest on Harbaugh's part, in going back to the NFL and doing it with the Minnesota Vikings. You got to think about that timing, right? He left Michigan on National Signing Day to go and do this interview. Like, if that doesn't indicate that there's like some serious interest in I'm going to do this, then I don't really know what else does.
The report from the Wolverine.com that landed on Tuesday, Jim Harbaugh plans to become the next coach of the Vikings. I mean, it really is.
He did plan that.
And we've said it before. He did plan. Sometimes plans change, not because you change them, but because when you get to Wally World, it's not open. There's another movie from the 80s that I'm sure you haven't seen. But Harbaugh told the Detroit Free Press, Mitch Albom specifically, that it was a one-time thing. He's done chasing NFL jobs. But he admitted exactly what I had heard, exactly why I continued throughout this hiring process to keep an eye on Jim Harbaugh. There was a tugging at me that I was once that close to a Super Bowl and I didn't get it. How many times have we said that the last 3 weeks? He wants a Super Bowl win. He's 58. There's only so many spins of the dial left for him as a coach. He wants to win a Super Bowl. He was waiting for someone to offer him an opportunity. Here's the quote. Some jobs came open. I was contacted by the Vikings. For better or worse, it was something I wanted to explore. I went in thinking I'm going to have 100% conviction on this, and if they have 100% conviction on this, then it's something I'm going to do. That tells us he went there intending to take the job. Yep. He wanted it. And listen, am I above saying I told you so if the Vikings stink with Kevin O'Connell? Would I be one to never mention again that they could have had Jim Harbaugh? I've got my talking points already etched in stone. I've already said it. I've written it. They made a mistake. They should have gone with Jim Harbaugh instead of the latest Sean McVay assembly line product. There's always going to be another one of those. There's always going to be somebody you could take from the Sean McVay coaching tree if that's what you want to do later. You had an opportunity for now. Fortune favors the brave. And that's not just a catchphrase to get you to buy crypto and drive up the price so the people who got in earlier can get out with a profit and leave you holding the bag. That is a fundamental truth that applies to sports. Fortune favors the brave. And the Vikings ultimately got timid. And you know what I think the problem is? It's taken me a while to build up to it today. The problem is the Wilfs don't live in Minnesota. The Wilfs aren't there every day. And I think they're concerned if we're not here to monitor the situation, it could implode because Jim Harbaugh is a little intense and there's no one here to serve as the principal, and that could be a problem. And then if they lived in Minnesota and worked in Minnesota, they may have been willing to do it.
Well, maybe, but also, I mean, you have to be all in on Harbaugh, right? Because, I mean, he said in that quote, that he was going into it with 100% conviction. And, his whole thing is we got to attack the day with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind. And if you're not all in on that, if you have any sort of trepidation with that, then you really shouldn't hire Harbaugh because you're not aligned with the way he wants to run the program. And we know that he can come in and run a successful football program, right? He did it in 2011 when there was a lockout, and he turned that thing around like that in San Francisco. So, I mean, I understand if there's any kind of trepidation with that, you really can't do it. If you think that Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah is going to get run over by Harbaugh and that's not what you want to have happen, then you can't hire him. And I don't know. I understand why they would want alignment between the GM and the head coach. And I don't know. We don't know exactly what was going on in there. And, you said you've heard some different things. But if there was some sort of disconnect throughout the day between the way Minnesota wants to run its franchise and the way Harbaugh wants to run an NFL franchise, then you really can't hire him because you already know that it's going to be off from day one. And, despite the fact that, yeah, he wins, he's doing this. If there's a way that the owners want to run their franchise and the coach doesn't align with that, then it's never going to work. And it's probably best for both parties that it didn't work.
Well, I understand that, but sometimes the owners have to adjust the way they run the franchise to the habits and idiosyncrasies and everything else that would fit into that bucket. I can't think of another $10 word like penultimate to throw in there, so I'll just throw in the towel. But sometimes you got to adjust to the guy who has proven he can do it. That's what I keep coming back to. This entire process of hiring a coach is a roll of the dice. It is a crapshoot, especially when you are hiring someone who has never been a head coach before. It is a fundamentally different skill set. It is a fundamentally different reality. You have to make a projection as an owner and general manager. Is this person suited to do a job he's never done before? You're not going to find out until he does it. You try to make a projection based upon whether or not he's ready to do it based on the evidence you gather and the people you talk to and the investigation you do, etc. Here's a guy who was 44-19-1, almost got to the Super Bowl his first year with the 49ers, even though they were 6-10 the year before, and there was no offseason program, lockout, wiped out everything, showed up early August, attacked the day with an enthusiasm unknown to man, and almost got to the Super Bowl. But for Kyle Williams, a couple muff punts, they would have gotten there. Got to the Super Bowl the next year, almost won it in Colin Kaepernick's 10th start. And then things started to go sideways. And I think they started to go sideways because the 49ers didn't know how to deal with him. Jed York didn't know how to deal with him. Trent Baalke didn't know how to deal with him. Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah was there the last 2 years of Jim Harbaugh's time with the 49ers. And he emerged from that experience saying, hey, if I ever become a GM, number one on my list, Jim Harbaugh. And that's the tragedy here, that the Wilfs didn't trust the guy they hired to be the general manager of their team to let Jim Harbaugh be the coach. I don't care if the interview was awkward. I don't care if things got clumsy. I don't care if people were texting the Wilfs trying to talk them out of it, players or whoever, others in the front office who felt threatened by the arrival of Jim Harbaugh because, God forbid, he might want to do things in a way that would yield more success than the Vikings have had. People get very safe and comfortable in their complacency, and they don't want anyone to stir it up. And they don't care about whether, they don't care like fans do. All fans care about is winning. People who have those jobs care about keeping their jobs. And yes, winning helps, but if you feel threatened by the arrival of a new coach who may do things differently in the quest to win, you don't want that. You'll just stick with dog paddle. I don't want to learn how to do the breaststroke. That's too hard. And if I'm not good at it, I won't be on the swim team. Just let me keep doing the dog paddle, please. That's the problem. And it's unfortunate. And again, I keep coming back to this. The people who own these teams have one qualification. They had enough money to buy it. That's it. You got enough money to buy it. How much money do you have? A lot. Okay, you're in. Doesn't matter if you're going to be good as an owner. In fact, the smart owners love it when people buy teams who don't know what they're doing because it makes it easier for them to win football games and pursue championships. If I'm an owner of an NFL team and my team is good, I want a bunch of rich idiots to buy teams because, number one, we have an owner in place who has the money and the resources to properly run a team. Number two, person has no idea what they're doing when it comes to trying to win championships. That's what I want. I've told you this story before, I think. Myles, if not you, I know I've said it on PFTPM. One time I was in the presence of Robert Kraft, and somebody asked him the question, what do you think about some of these owners who don't live and work in the city where their team is? And he said, I love competing against them. I mean, the good owners don't want to have other good owners around. You're not threatened by other good owners. You're threatened by you're threatened by other good owners. You're not threatened by people who don't know what they're doing. But that's the problem. For the fan base is you're stuck with the owner, like Jed York said 6 years ago. Can't fire the owner. That's the problem. And it can't be fixed. Because how many people are actually going to stop rooting for a team because they think the owners are incompetent? Are you really going to stop? If you think Stephen Ross is incompetent, but you've been a Dolphins fan since you were 5 years old because your dad was a Dolphins fan, your mom was a Dolphins fan, the family is full of Dolphins fan, it is ingrained on your soul like your DNA. If you would get a DNA test, it would be 0.1% Miami Dolphin. What can you do? You've got no choice. That's on one hand, it's great that fans feel that passionate. On the other hand, it really sucks for the fans whose teams are owned by people who have no business owning football teams. Rant over.
Wow, that was great. I mean, it kind of started with, a quote by 21 Savage, how much money you got? A lot. I don't even think you even know what that is, but you did it.
I have no idea what 21 Savage is.
That's okay, Mike. Maybe I'll play you some 21 Savage when you get out here. I don't even really know where to go off of that. You just said so much. That was just... yeah, I agree with you. Like, people aren't going to just stop rooting for their teams. What they can do is they'll stop spending money, right? When teams are really bad, people get apathetic, and so they don't go spend money on tickets. They don't go to the games, and then you have these empty seats. Right? That was part of the issue with the Giants. That everybody became apathetic. It's the same thing we're seeing with the Texans, right? Even though they seem to want to hire Josh McCown, like, everybody's been pretty apathetic toward them because they've been really bad since losing 2 years ago to the Chiefs in the divisional round. We can probably say the same thing about Miami. People are going to start getting a little bit apathetic if they don't hire a good coach and they don't really start winning soon. So I guess that's kind of the only thing there that, guys are really going to start paying attention to. But, I mean, in the case of Minnesota, it's not like Sean McVay's coaching tree has been fruitless. All right, one of these pals of Sean McVay is going to face Sean McVay in the Super Bowl next Sunday. So
yeah, he got Joe Burrow, too. He got Joe Burrow.
Yeah, okay,
got Joe Burrow.
But who knows what Kevin O'Connell's going to do with Kirk Cousins? There may be some hope for you guys yet over there. That's all I'm going to say. That's it.
All I'm saying is they could have rolled the dice with Harbaugh, and if it didn't work, you move on, and then you hire the flavor of the month in whatever month it is you're hiring a coach again. I would have found a way to coexist with Jim Harbaugh because he's a proven commodity. He has proven that he can win. That's where they screwed up. Big Cat was on the show yesterday. He's a Bears fan, and he said I was afraid they were going to hire him. That's all you need to hear. That's all you need to hear. I think so. If fans of the other teams, because I think that's not an uncommon sentiment. I think fans of other teams in the division were probably watching it saying, I hope to hell they don't hire Jim Harbaugh. I hope they don't hire him.
Maybe, and probably other teams in the NFC were thinking that too. But, it's one of those things where if from ownership you don't feel like you're aligned with the guy, then you don't hire him. Now, again, frankly, I agree with you.
There's something wrong with ownership then. There's something wrong with ownership.
Yes, absolutely, because you should be prioritizing winning, and you have someone who has proven that he can come in and turn a team that was 6-10 into one that gets to the conference championship game, right? The Vikings are better than the Niners were at that point right now. Do you think I'm off base with that? So they're probably closer to it. So, yeah, I mean, this was a unique opportunity, and now we'll see if Harbaugh ever wants to have another flirtation with the NFL. Even though he said he didn't today, I bet at some point he will.
Yeah, next year he will. Because that desire, when you look at his full quotes, the Super Bowl is the ultimate prize in the sport of football. The second best prize is a national championship. So let's go get one of those.
I don't even know if it's that.
Next year, next year, he's going to want to jump on whatever opportunity comes his way. He's just got to get through this year now. He's got to put the toothpaste back in the toothpaste holder long enough to get through the 2022 season. And then next year, he'll once again be interested in whatever openings may arise. And it would be very funny if there's an opening in the NFC North, although there probably won't be. I doubt that the Lions will be firing Dan Campbell after his second year. I highly doubt that Matt Eberflus will be getting a pink slip after 1 year with the Bears, and Matt LaFleur has built up a decent amount of equity. The Vikings won't have to worry about Jim Harbaugh landing in the division, but they may have to worry about him landing in the conference, and that's the conference you want to land in now. If you want to try to get to a Super Bowl, that's a far easier path than the AFC, especially with the possibility that Aaron Rodgers is going to jump to a team in the AFC.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.